Good evening, Mr. Speaker.
Good evening. How are you?
Let me turn on. If you want to run real quick, feel free to go. We
I'm just
still
gonna
have.
turn a ring light on. Give us better lighting. See how this is? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. What I did is I bought one that is like a ring one, so
Yeah, I have a ring light.
it works pretty good.
Yeah.
So we are expecting some people. Let's give them a few minutes, and then we start.
And we're doing this in English?
Yes, I know your Spanish is pretty good, but just for because what we are trying to do is repost this on our Facebook page, which has 20 something thousand likes, and our YouTube that we just started, so everybody can understand what we're talking about. I mean,
Okay.
they can translate now on YouTube, so but yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, up to you. If you want to do some questions in Spanish, I will be more than happy to switch. So let me make sure that everybody on the chat group is aware that we are starting.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Chase.
Hi,
I'm
Joanne.
the chair of the Republican Hispanic Assembly of Virginia, and it's a pleasure being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. So one more minute and we start just to respect the time of Mr. Speaker Renner. A quick background of the RNHA Florida. We have been in operation since 2019. Most recently, past chair was Emilio Reese, and before him was now Mayor Santiago Avila, which was the one that introduced me to the RNHA back in 2018, 19, back in the day, and I'm still around. Now the vice chairman for the national RNHA and also for RNHA Florida. Um, and we briefly gonna talk about something that every time people ask me where I'm from, the first thing that I say is I'm from the free state of Florida. That's the first thing that I say. And last time I was in Washington with a few state representatives from other countries, and when they asked me, I mentioned that, and they were like, "Oh, are you guys that free?" I'm like, "Yes, thank God we are," and thanks to the leadership that was during the 2020 cycle, we were one of the freer state of Florida. So I would like to welcome everyone officially. We are going to start. This meeting is being recorded and it will be posted on our Facebook page, Instagram, YouTube. Most likely will be translated or the subtitles in Spanish, even though we are going to ask a question in Spanish or multiple questions in Spanish. The RNHA, the Republican National Hispanic Assembly, our mission is very simple. We believe in faith, in family, in freedom, and opportunities. And also we believe in law and order. So we believe in what the American people believe at the end of the day. The RNHA Florida is committed to advance the Hispanic community and all of the Floridians in the state of Florida. That's why it matters to our community in our state, because we are 29% last time I checked. Almost 5 million people are Hispanics or Hispanic descent in the state of Florida. So we are not anymore a block. We are a voting force that defines elections, and I'm glad that former Speaker Renner is here with us tonight. We have invited all of the candidates for governor of Florida, and I know that Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins will also be here with us in another meeting, but the other candidates are still had an open invitation from the RNHA to come up and talk directly to our community, to the things that matter to us, to the things that matter to all of Floridians, because we're the backbone in some areas of this state, and I believe that we deserve to hear firsthand from the candidates. So thank you so much, Speaker Renner, for being here tonight with us. And I would like to start. You had a successful career during your when you were Speaker of the House, and actually it was one of the most successful Republican administrations in decades. The Free State of Florida brand is now worldwide. This is not only the U.S. This is everybody in the world know the Free State of Florida. The question that I want to start is, what is Paul Renner going to do different or better for the Hispanic community that want to know the next chapter of Florida? We already knew what Florida looked like in 2020, 2024, but we are now looking 8 years in the future. What Paul Renner is going to do different for the state of Florida?
Well, thank you for having me. And si puedo, algunas palabras en español para presentarme. Bueno, mi familia, tengo una esposa colombiana y dos niños de 6 años y 4 años, una muchacha de 6 y un muchacho de 4. Y tengo 20 años en el militar y en dos guerras, y fiscal, estatal y también presidente de la Cámara de Representantes. And it's a pleasure to be with you. And I'll complete the answer in English if that's okay. To say that we're going to go after affordability and make sure that we make Florida more affordable than it has become, because we are a victim of our success. We've done so many things that everybody wants to be here. We have people from outside that are buying up homes, renting those homes out to others that have kind of taken up a lot of the housing stock from Floridians to buy. And so we need to move in a direction that really prioritizes the people that live here and work here. And that's what I'll do. I'm running on a Florida first agenda, which means that everybody on the call that lives here in the state of Florida, I want to make sure your costs go down in taxes and insurance, electric bills, fuel, you name it, commuter charges, tolls. And we really make sure that Florida is a place where you can have a great salary, and that salary can carry your family and provide for your family in a way that gives you a high quality of life. So that's my day one priority, as well as keeping Florida safe as the only prosecutor in the race, to keeping Florida free as the architect of the free state of Florida. It will mean pushing back against any threats we face. There's the red threat, and the green threat is Charlie Kirk talked about, which is the left and China. Influence of China will not allow them to purchase land here or have professors or students here if they're coming from a communist government, any communist government for that matter, not just China. And so we need to be mindful of that, as well as the threat that we face from Islam. I believe is something that we can't ultimately coexist. And I say that not out of any animosity, but because they've said the same thing, that there's no intention to coexist in any other system than Islam. And so that means our constitutional order, our way of life, is under threat from the rise that you see in Europe happening here. And so I will stop that from happening here in Florida, along with other threats like AI, to make sure we're protecting our children, protecting adults for that matter, from a technology that can be powerful in a positive way, but can also be damaging if we're not putting guardrails. Ultimately, human beings need to control technology, not the other way around. And so we'll continue to have a great business climate, a place where businesses can come, and my property tax proposal will help eliminate homestead property taxes, but it also eliminates property taxes on small businesses. So people that want to start a business or have a business, it will be a huge help to them as we shift that burden off to other folks who come to visit Florida, who invest here from out of state, those types of things, and make sure that we're taking care of people again who make their living, make their home here in Florida. We can't hear you, Luis.
Sorry, I was muted because my baby's running around, so I didn't want the background noise on it. So that was very powerful and very clear. And I want to look into the future and talk about what will be your top three priority for cost of living priorities in your first 100 days as a governor. What will be those three policies, three laws that you will try to pass right away, or sign an executive order right away to make sure that Floridians can afford insurance, can afford to live in Florida because it's getting more and more expensive. I come from the real estate world and I see people payments going up by 50% almost. So it's unsustainable, right, what is happening right now.
So you can see my property tax plan on voterenner.com. And again, it's elimination of homestead property taxes with $1 million exemption, $750,000 exemption for businesses. So this basically means virtually everyone will not pay any taxes on their homestead. Everyone will get a significant break, and that will rise with inflation. So it'll go up from $1 million as we go into the future to keep pace with the rise in housing, and that would be on the assessed value, not the fair market value. So essentially, virtually everyone will no longer pay taxes except for the the beachfront mansions, that type of thing. So that'll be first out of the gate. We'll make sure on insurance I want to see at least a temporary repeal, if not a permanent repeal of the tax on homeowners insurance. That will save, not a great deal of money, 150, $200 on your bill, but it's something. Home hardening programs will lean into that can save as much as $1,000 a year on your premiums, which is something, as well as regulatory reforms that I believe we can take measures to lower property insurance by as much as 10% in that first year or two, and then continue to lean into the reforms that I helped craft that have rescued the insurance market from collapse. We saw insurers leaving the state. Now we've got 18 or 19 new insurers. That's good. That will continue to help push down prices. And then on electric bills, it's about changing the incentive structure so that utilities have to deliver the lowest possible cost that is domestically produced here in the United States and that is reliable. And I say those three things, and they sound very basic and common sense, but the reality is that the utilities have gone to a point of almost exclusively building solar to please their shareholders out of state, or to pursue some of the kind of the green new scam deal from Biden. And it's not the lowest cost to the ratepayer. It actually drives up our costs because they get paid a profit based on how much they spend to generate each kilowatt. And so if it's more expensive per kilowatt hour as solar is, you're paying more than you need to if they were to use natural gas or nuclear or some other forms of energy. So it'll be the lowest cost. Solar is obviously not domestically sourced. It comes from China, and reliability is a question mark when the sun doesn't shine 24 hours a day. So those are three areas you mentioned. Those are your answers on taxes, insurance, electric bills.
That's amazing. And I wanna continue on the electric bill area that is, and it's something very worry that I've been reading more about and learning more about it, and it is the data centers.
Yeah.
So the data centers for those here or those watching later who don't know, they use tremendous amount of power and water. This is something very important. Every time you talk to ChatGPT, you're actually using water to cool down those data centers. So I have seen now the governor stepping up against some of the data centers because obviously the cost of the electricity will be passed down to the consumers at the end of the day. We are going to take care of the bill. So what will be your plan specifically for those developments that we need, but at the same time we have to make it in a way that the consumer doesn't pay for those data centers or for those AI or for the use of the water that they're consuming.
Yeah, and I'm not satisfied that what they're offering right now will do anything other than raise our electric rates, destroy our water supply, damage our aquifer. And so I have been calling for some time. I had a press conference today in Orlando to more formally lay out my position, which is we're putting a full halt on the development of these hyperscale data centers. As you noted, there's one in Louisiana that literally uses more power than the entire city of New Orleans. So think about that. We're talking about massive, massive energy use, equal to a city of 800,000 people, one data center. And I will say, my opponent, this is a difference. This is a policy difference, wants us to be the leader in AI data centers in the country. And he and I have a very different viewpoint of it. And so I believe that we need to put a halt on that. We need to know how are you going to provide your own electricity on your own grid? Because if it goes on the grid that all of us use, we will pay more for electricity. We will be subsidizing those data centers. And with respect to the water, it's about 5 million gallons a day of groundwater that would be taking out of the aquifer while we're in a severe drought. We have fires across the state. This is not the right time, not the right place for these data centers here in Florida. And so I want a full halt, i.e., no data centers. Let's let these other states for the next year or two let them be the experiment and let's see what happens. I'm not going to stop artificial intelligence. It has its uses. It can do positive things. I acknowledge all that. We want to beat China. All that's true. That does not mean that we need to scar the landscape of Florida. Again, my opponent said we have a lot of pristine land we can use for that. I want pristine land to remain pristine. I don't want to see it developed where rural communities or other communities see a data center that's also very noisy. So they're running fans and this type of thing 24/7. It's one thing if you move next to the international airport and you've moved to the nuisance. It's a different thing when the nuisance comes and moves to you. And all of a sudden you're listening 24/7 all night long to the hum of fans and everything else they use to try to cool these very, very mammoth buildings down, again, that use massive electricity, massive water, generate a lot of noise, some concerns about the environmental impact if they're close to a school or a residential area, these types of things. All these questions need to be answered, and maybe one day there will be answers. But right now, I'm at absolute no. Hit the stop button for now. Let's take a look. Let's answer questions. We're not going to rush into this and disregard the needs of Floridians. I'm putting, again, Florida first, which means the people on this call, the people listening on social media, I'm not going to allow as your governor for your rates to be raised, period, full stop. And the same is true for destroying our water system.
That's great. Johan, we're going to have questions at the end of the discussion. So if you can please hold that thought, and we are going to go back to you as soon as we finish with a couple of questions that we have.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for being here. The AI. So and I'm going to share a personal anecdote. So I was invited to meet one of the other candidates, and I travel a lot, especially to the UAE, and I noticed that in the UAE they started teaching AI since the first kindergartners, first grade. They started teaching AI to public schools, and China's doing the same. China's teaching AI, and I asked the same exact question. I was like, what will be your plan to not catch up, but to actually play the leadership role in this new educational, because sometimes public schools are teaching something that is not going to be useful for in the next 5 years or the next 3 years. So my question is do you have any specific plan to add to the public educational system artificial intelligence, or at least have the platform in place for some of the district to start implementing AI into the education? Because the reality is, if we are going to compete if our kids, my kid is 2 years old, and we had my wife and I had a conversation, and what will be like in 20 years when he finish school and he goes to the working place. I mean, it will be, I'm sure that it will be no more real estate brokers or lawyers or accountants, because AI will take over. So what will be specifically your plan for this new wave in the public educational system?
Sure. And I think this is another big divide in the race, but a big important distinction just overall, which is the difference between what I would fully support, which is teaching our kids, teaching our university students as well about how AI works, how to use AI, how to find benefits from AI, which will, again, we're not going to stop it, and it can do some powerful positive things. And so we absolutely want to teach our kids how to use it to our own ends. Again, humanity has got to be in control of this technology. What I am not supportive of is the idea that AI or AI robot will replace the teacher in the classroom. And I say that because AI has no moral compass. It has no soul. The Governor DeSantis, highlighted a woman who lost her son to suicide that was assisted by an AI agent. And so the difference is, if your son, my son or daughter comes and says, I'm depressed, I'm thinking about taking my life, we would spend a lot of time as moms and dads making sure that didn't happen and counseling them and getting them help. In the case of AI is simply going to tell you, here's 10 ways to do it. It is not going to step in as a moral actor. And so we have to be mindful that we can never turn over our minds, our values, our humanity to a piece of technology. But we should, obviously, and we want to beat the Chinese and everyone else when it comes to the technology race. So kids should be educated in how do you work on AI? How do you develop AI so that they may have jobs that in the production of greater and greater iterations of artificial intelligence that can be useful in serving humankind, not humankind serving AI. And there was an interesting study or experiment that I highlighted at the press conference today, where they put a number of AI agents together, and they started on their own to collaborate without prompting, and which was interesting. It's kind of a human response. And then the experiment went on to see what would happen if they said, "Look, we're shutting you off. In other words, we're gonna effectively kill you. We're gonna shut you down and not have you come back." And at least one of the AI agents turned on the human experimenters and asked one guy if he thought his wife would like to know about the affair he was having, because it was listening to, I guess, his conversations. And so I think we need to be mindful that we're entering a brave new world. It can have tremendous promise and tremendous, help in cases of healthcare and developing new cures for cancer and these kinds of things that will be very, very powerful and positive. It can also have some pretty frightening outcomes, and we just need, as the people in charge, to stay in charge. And so I think to answer your question, it's about teaching kids how to use AI, how AI can be used in the marketplace as they grow. So when they get that degree in college, it's not irrelevant. It's not a degree that's been wiped out by AI. They know how to use AI in their chosen field. That's very important. Having AI replace a teacher or a mentor in the classroom, that's a different story.
Thank you for that, and you just gave me a real answer, and I do appreciate that. I didn't have the same type of response, so thank you for giving us a straightforward answer and a real answer. And speaking about education, what will be your non-negotiable on parental rights in education?
Non-negotiable. Parents have the primary role in the upbringing of their children, period, full stop. That's fundamental. I'd go further to say I think we need to, continue to enshrine that in law. I did that when I was in the legislature, when I led the legislature. There are bills that were before the legislature this year. Sadly, they did not pass. I would bring those back. And so that we have parental rights being exercised in all facets. We have people mainly on the left that believe and put their confidence in so-called experts that know better for our children than moms and dads is what they believe. And so, and there's nothing wrong with consulting your pediatrician, and you should. There's nothing wrong with consulting people who are experts in their field, but those experts can never supplant the wisdom of parents who know their children and their needs better than anyone else. And so, parental rights are very, very important to me. And one of the, again, differences between me and some of the others is I've got a lot of receipts to prove my record on parental rights, a lot of parental rights advocates who are supporting our campaign. And so we'll never compromise. To answer your question, there's not, it's not negotiable.
I'm glad to hear that. So going to a topic that is very nowadays is very important, which is our safety of the communities, and what we have been seeing for the last couple of years with fentanyl, with trafficking, especially in the Hillsborough County area, the human trafficking, that is very unfortunate. One of the top areas in the nation, actually, Central Florida is another one. So what will be your top three or top five public safety priorities, and what gets immediate focus? What will be the immediate focus in those 100 days?
Well, I will tell you that my position, and I know there's a lot of difference of opinion on the death penalty, but I don't think if you get the death penalty, you should be on death row for 30 and 40 years. A man who raped and murdered a 6-year-old girl was on death row for 43 years, and her family grew old, and many of them died before they ever saw justice. So we're going to have a much shorter appellate process when it comes to that. We're going to make sure we go after public corruption. If you're insider trading, I want to see legislation that seeks the recall of those members and expel them from office. We're going to make sure that we conduct a very aggressive, what you can call a permanent doge to root out waste, fraud, and abuse in our system. I hope we don't have problems as significant as those you see in Minnesota, but I do guarantee you that in our Medicaid system, which is billions of dollars, people are cheating. And so we have to get after those people, hold them accountable, reclaim those taxpayer dollars. So I want permanent doge. Because think about this. You go out and you pick weeds out of the area around your house. And then 2 weeks later, you open your door and you look down and what do you see? You see more weeds because they come back. And so we have to make sure we have a permanent doge, if you will, in every single corner that touches taxpayer money, state, local, special districts, universities, you name it. If they receive taxpayer money, there needs to be greater auditing functions. And again, AI, this is a positive potential function. You can turn AI loose on things and find the anomalies in spending that may point to something that is wrong there, somebody that is trying to cheat the system. So it can have a beneficial use there. And again, I won't shy away from innovation and new technology where it's helpful. So we'll do those things. We will allow for the referral to statewide prosecutors if local officials, you've seen it where a local official that's corrupt is able to dodge charges because of connections, or a wealthy donor maybe is not convicted because they have connections to politicians or the local prosecutor or what have you. We'll have a state referral up to FDLE to look at that and make an indictment decision, things of that nature to make sure we hold people accountable. I've called for the resignation of one of our congressmen, a Republican as well as a Democrat, because if you're unethical and you've got problems where you're acting and having injunctions by women because you're a predator, then you should not be in the Congress. And we see that too many politicians are self-promoting, getting rich, having fun. They've forgotten about we the people, and we need to hold them accountable.
That's interesting. And going back to what you were mentioning, the safety priority, I want to emphasize on on the the problem that we all have in Florida with the drugs, especially now. The president just reclassified marijuana. Um, I personally disagree with the decision. I think for medical uses is great. Actually, my mom had used it for a period of time for her conditions. But I honestly I do not want Florida to be like New York City. You go out in New York City and all you smell is that smell of weed. So how do you feel about what the president just did? And how do you feel about the illegal drugs that are in Florida, mainly from countries in South America? They use Florida as the gateway to other parts of the nation. So how will you tackle that in the state?
Well, you use the word gateway, and marijuana is obviously not as harmful immediately to someone as, say, cocaine or meth or something, but it is a gateway drug into those other more serious drugs. I don't support the president's decision. I think you've got to look at that THC, that piece that gets people high. And the largest data or the largest argument on any kind of medical benefit comes from the CBD side, the non-euphoric side anyway. And then some people will argue you need some THC to make it work, and that's a conversation for another day. But I'm opposed to recreational marijuana. I'll tell you just while we're on it. And again, I don't think all the candidates are on the same page there to let the voters decide. No, I'll go out like DeSantis did, whether it's pot or abortion, and go out and campaign against radical amendments that would dramatically shift the policy of the state of Florida in a particular direction. And they'll be back. And so I did. I spent $2 million out of a political committee I don't have to run for governor to stop those two amendments, especially Amendment 4. The others were not present in fighting that, and they knew they'd run for governor, I assume. And so it's important to have a leader who's not just going to take what comes to their desk, sign a bill, veto a bill, and do a press conference, but actually to go out and stop the left when they're coming in from out of state, as this happened, hundreds of millions of dollars in both cases, to really jam their personal agenda into our Constitution. And so, as governor, I will not allow that to happen. I will campaign across the state like Governor DeSantis did, because I did it already.
That's great. And now I want to shift gear to the budgets and accountability. We know that Florida, thanks to you and thanks to the Governor Ron DeSantis, we have a surplus. We would like to keep it that way. So how do you keep Florida from drifting into high taxes and high regulation politics to also support some of the issues on some of the social programs on the budget that needs support? So how will you balance that again? You already did. So
Yeah.
how will you, as a governor, will do it again?
Right, and every candidate will tell you what you want to hear. They're going to make your wildest dreams come true. But you can look at my record, because I have a very extensive one, and see that we passed, had two budgets, 23 and 24. That's the time you're the president of the chamber, the speaker, the leader of the legislature in the House. And both times we finished our budget early, not on time, but early. Balanced, record tax relief. We took some of our state debt and took some of it and actually paid it off early ahead of schedule and got rid of it. So it was paid off. And so we have a little bit of state debt left, but we had that kind of responsibility. We'll continue to do that. We'll hold the line on taxes. When it comes to regulation, you asked about that, things that could interrupt Florida's very pro jobs, pro business environment. I'll veto it. If somebody sends me a bill that is going to really get in the way and hurt businesses, I'll veto it. It's got to have a really compelling reason to add to the regulatory burden that already exists. I like the one in. If you want one in, you got to have take two out, that kind of thing, where we are streamlining those regulations. And so my record is very, very clear, and it's a free market record. It's not necessarily pro-business and free market are not always the same. So I was an opponent of Enterprise Florida funds to go pay, Amazon to build a warehouse in Florida because they're coming anyway. I don't think that's a good use of taxpayer money. We should take that taxpayer money in a way that benefits all businesses, doing things on our infrastructure, making sure we have quality, top quality education we talked about a little bit earlier. These kinds of things that make all businesses want to come here and stay here. Otherwise, when the incentives wear out, they go to Georgia, they go to South Carolina, somebody offers them a better deal. So it's important that we have that permanent incentive that we built here in the free state of Florida. And look, people are coming here more than any other state by far. We saw the income coming into the state exceeded the rest of the top 10 combined. Like we were 2.5 times more than Texas, the number two. And then all the rest, 2 through 10, we had more income flow from people moving from other states into Florida in those years than any other state, and combined than any other state. And of course, California is the biggest loser of money, people leaving and taking their money and leaving the state. And so we are, in some respects, a victim of our success when it comes to affordability. We don't want to stop people from wanting to be here. I'm just not going to be putting up a sign saying move to Florida. I've joked and said if I could, build a wall and make Georgia pay for it, maybe I would do that just to give us some space and let us, kind of catch up with the high demand for housing where, young people can't afford a home. I've got plans in my plan to help first-time home buyers, that truly first time, never bought a home, to make sure they have the American dream as well. Gen Z is under a lot of stress these days, they say, and dismissive that they can ever own a home. We need to make sure we provide opportunity for everybody in this state. I'm not going to let people on fixed income lose their home and leave Florida. That's why my property tax proposal will remedy that, because you'll never lose your home when you don't pay your property taxes. We're not going to let that happen.
And that's a very interesting point that you just touched on, because that was actually my next question. I have been in the real estate business since 2011 when I first got my real estate license, and I have seen the prices of the properties, thank God, increasing, and people taking their equity out and this and that. But lately, it has been very challenging for developers to build these new communities. Local governments, Lake County is one of the examples. Osceola County is another example. They have so many regulations, so many um, obstacles in order for the developers to build properties that we need. So any plan, I know you mentioned affordability, but I want to touch on the permitting side of constructing the properties, because zoning is a big portion of it. All of the bureaucracy of the counties is just getting in the way of developers. And if developers keep changing plans and changing and adjusting plans just to accommodate 20% more green space, I, I've been hearing some weird requests from local governments, more green space, more the parking bigger instead of 11 feet or 12. Let's build it bigger. So any state proposal for this local government to actually stop on the bureaucracy for developers to do their work and build more houses?
Well, we've done those kinds of things, and there's always the balance between home rule, which you know your county better than I know your county, and having people in local government have some say so about how the community develops that's consistent with what the community wants, versus what you're talking about is, they need to, if they have requirements, fine, but lay those requirements out and let's have the conversation in one meeting, address those requirements, and then you get your permit, not, a mother may I system that keeps going week after month after, quarter after year, where it elongates the process, which of course drives up the cost. And so there's two sides of that story between the developers and the local government. We've dealt with it a lot in the legislature. We want people to be able to build, developers to be able to buy nice homes at a reasonable price, and that means not getting clobbered by local government in long, drawn out permitting. And then also let the local government have some say so it's not just anything that can be built anywhere, anytime, type of deal. And so it's really all, and I think the word balance just comes to mind when it comes to issues of development. We're not going to completely stop it. We're not going to let it go, with no, oversight at all at the local level. There's really got to be balance there, and that's what I would seek to maintain.
Interesting. And going back to the zoning issues, because I know it's for example, in Orange County they have Orange County 2030, and now they want to do Orange County 2050, so that way they can increase taxes, and they talk about 1 cent. It's at the end of the day just to increase taxes, but having a resource or a tool to simplify the zoning and the areas to allow a little bit more of, for example, tiny homes. Tiny homes in Georgia. I have visited a community in Georgia, uh, 400, 500 square feet, and they have everything that they need. It's like a studio. They have everything that they need, but most of the local government, they do have a minimum, which is way above the 400 square feet. So that makes it unaffordable for to people, because obviously developers high cost, high prices, and developer will pass that on to the consumer. So any specific area that you wanna work on the zoning, rezoning of land or anything in that area?
Well, density or so these tiny homes is another option. I think this illustrates my point about balance. So the balance might be for the developers, you can build tiny homes in every county, and we make a law that says that. The home rule piece or the local control piece would be they get to decide or have some role in deciding where those tiny homes can be placed. It can't be anywhere that you want it to be, obviously, and so. I think that's where, you get back to balance, but I think those tiny homes are a reasonable request, that it's a great way for people to get a starter home, that maybe their first home, or if you're on fixed income and you have modest means, but you don't want to really live in an apartment type community or rent, you want to own something. I think those are great options, and so I'm very positive about this tiny home concept as an option for people to have something, because the idea of everybody needing to be in a 5,000 square foot home, you don't. A lot of people grew up in 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 square foot homes and had 6 kids, 9 kids. And so I used to live in a small bungalow in Jacksonville. It was one of those, and I don't know how they did it, but they did it, and it worked. So we do have to make sure that we're providing adequate housing stock for people to find some place in their area that they can actually afford to buy and live. And so that's where the balance comes in. The local government should make sure that's available somewhere, and not just say, well, we want, everybody's got to be on a 1 acre lot, and you got to have this, and you got to have that, and the setbacks, and everybody has to have a 2 car garage. To me, that's not balance. To me, that's onerous regulation. And so I think that's where, some policing or some refereeing, has come in to play. And the question is, have we gone too far in
Mhm.
some respects? And I think in some respects we have, and we should return to some more greater local control, but it shouldn't be unlimited. It's a balance.
And one final question before we open the floor for questions. And I know State Representative Juan Porras from Miami was working on a HOA bill, because some HOAs here have more power than anything.
Yeah.
Uh, do you have a take on the HOA bill, or there is something to be done against the HOA, or with the HOA, at least they don't police you that much? I know a couple of my clients could not have an American flag on their back.
Right. And again, this goes back to balance. They're operating like a bad local government, basically. And so you mentioned Porras. He did one of the bills when I was leading the legislature. We had two. His bill was about people stealing money from the on the board were stealing money and misappropriating and doing things like that, to hold them accountable. We had another member who had another bill to lower the kinds of things that they can do. You had people out there with a speed gun, writing speeding tickets in their community that belong to the HOA. I mean, it's not the cops or anything. I mean, what are you doing? So So having some, again, reasonable restrictions on what they can and can't do. I think, at the end of the day, if these guys don't, kind of straighten up, I think you need some kind of recertification process to have your HOA continue in existence. And if you're, running roughshod over your community, five people on the board or whatever that you can't get rid of, maybe they should get rid of the HOA and just let it go away. So I'm not averse to that. A HOA really should be a shield and not a sword. You got to cut your grass. You can't let your grass grow for 6 months and not cut it. But it shouldn't be a sword where you say, you want to plant daisies? I like marigolds. We're going to make you plant marigolds at your house. That kind of thing is not what an HOA is supposed to be. It's supposed to defend, that common, minimum level of cleanliness and to keep it a nice community. And I think that's what people like about the HOA. What they don't like is the, government gone wild aspects that keep getting reported. And so if that keeps happening, you can expect more regulation that I would sign to, and I said the word regulation or restrictions is maybe the better word, to limit their power and authority over the people in their neighborhood because, they're not dictators.
They act like it.
Sometimes they act like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they act like it. So I would like to open the floor for question. I know, Joanne, you had one question, and if you can please unmute yourself and go ahead with your question.
First of all, this is wonderful. I am very glad to be able to participate. The questions are wonderful, and it's a pleasure to have our incredible candidate Paul Renner. I'm so glad you mentioned the data centers and you guys brought that. I live in Ashburn, Virginia, and it's supposed to be the main capital of data centers of the area. We have about, I think it's close to 200. And I was in a meeting of the community. I live in Brambleton. There's about 2,600 homes here, and I've been here for 22 years. Very close to the Dulles Airport. And I don't see anything good about those data centers. I'm sorry. I know that. And by the way, I've been in real estate since 1987. So know a little bit about real estate too, which I'm very proud of all the wonderful work that Luis Figueroa is doing because my maiden last name, Luis, is Figueroa, Joan Figueroa. So isn't that funny? A
Yeah,
coincidence.
it is. Maybe we're cousins or something.
I know. But really, this is awful. I don't like it. It lowers your property value. It's made our area look like an industrialized zone. For years and years, we have underground utilities, so we never had any outages from electricity until these power lines started coming in here and digging underneath our area. So I just want you to know, in your campaign, you might want to stress this because I think the majority of actual homeowners are going to be with you in these data centers. Around here, we've had a lot of different counties that have been suing not to have the data centers. So
Mhm.
you know,
Well, they won't have to sue when I'm governor. We're going to put a halt to it. And if you didn't hear my earlier remarks, we did a press conference today, actually, and I've been saying this for months now that I want a full moratorium. I think I'm the only one, and my main opponent has said we want to lead in constructing them. So there's a very clear difference, and I know you're not a Florida voter, but a very, very clear difference. And I've never seen an issue quite like this where, the public is so opposed, and yet because of the money involved, there are, you know, elected officials that will approve this at the local level. There's a lot of campaign donations going on and people just, parroting the talking points of those that want to develop these data centers and build first and ask questions later. And that's not what we're going to do when I'm governor. We're going to get those questions answered if they can be answered. And I don't know if down the road there's some new technology that lets them run cool without water. They can provide their own, power to on their own grid. These kinds of things where you would find them more acceptable. But I've got a lot of questions, and right now, what they're offering, my answer is no, not at all for now. We need to see how this all plays out in places like Virginia and look and see. And when you see that backlash, you know that we've made the right call.
yes, and keep talking about it. I think it's a great campaign position to have, even though, like you just mentioned, you'll have the big corporations and all the other organizations associated with making money, but the actual homeowners are going to be mostly on your side. So congratulations on doing that. It is really like we're so hysterical about it around here. You don't want to have what we have here. I can
Right.
assure
I
you.
don't.
And I have lots of family and friends in Florida, so I'll make sure to let them know. God bless you. Thank you.
They're proposing a 1.2 gigawatt facility in little bitty Fort Meade that would dwarf it by, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 times the power demand of that little town. And so all the electeds there can see is dollar signs and new property tax revenue generation. It's going to solve all their problems, not considering the needs and the damage it's going to cause to their community and their voters. And so people are upset. I'm upset. I'm going to be very crystal clear throughout the campaign about where I stand on it.
Good for you. Good luck. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Luis. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you so much for being here with us. Any other
Hi.
questions? Hi.
Hello, yes. Hi, my name is Gauderi Cambry, and I have two questions. Thank you so much, Speaker Renner, for talking to us. My first question, I'm a government employee. I'm an attorney for the Department of Children and Families. And so I know that, throughout the DeSantis administration and through the balance of the budget, we've been able to have raises for public employees every year. And so one priority for me is how will you make sure that we continue to be on this path where we, as government employees, can rely on having raises every year the same way that we've been in the last couple of years?
Well, those last couple of years were probably me.
Wonderful.
Because I was there, leading that budget process, certainly in 2023 and 2024. This year and last year, my successor took over, so any credit or blame goes to him, not me. But 23, 24, I really controlled the budget on the House side, and we did do some pay raises. Look, we have to always prioritize where dollars have to go. We try to take care of everybody the best we can, and if that means a pay raise this year but not next year, we just have to see what the budget looks like, frankly, and we've kept it pretty lean. But you do have to take care of people with all the inflation that happened. We felt like it was the right thing to do to give people a bump because they were going backwards in terms of their salaries, and the private sector was certainly raising their salaries pretty significantly to help people catch up with the rise in prices.
Thank you for that. My second question is on regards to the right of to life. I mean, I'm very glad that you campaign against that very radical amendment of Amendment 4. What do you think is the next steps in Florida in terms of protecting life?
Well, in terms of protecting life, I think it starts with speaking about life and encouraging people to give greater value to human life from conception to natural death, if you will, the entirety of our lives. And if you picked up the theme I had talked about with technology is, we have to, and I believe we were created by God. That brings with it God-given rights that the government doesn't give. It means that we should cherish that. It's something that we should be, focusing on. And so I will advocate for all the things that are pro-life, that touches that and value humanity and make sure we're taking care of each other in a way that's appropriate and protecting the vulnerable. I advocated as speaker, as a leader in the legislature, to stop transgender surgeries on minors, to protect children from online pornography, where 8-year-old boys were, and young kids were seeing things you can't buy in a convenience store. Girls that were having major and still are having major mental health issues, contemplating or even taking their own lives because of addictive social media platforms. To me, that all kind of goes into that pro-life umbrella, if you will, because it's looking out for people that are being, in this case, destroyed by some threats of technology. Again, I'm not anti-technology. There's great things about social media that allows us to connect with people, but it's had real harm, and so we have to be honest about that and make sure we're protecting life at all stages.
Thank you so much.
And I should say, if I can just depend on that, since I didn't mention before, in addition to fighting Amendment 4, I was a key architect in the Heartbeat Protection Act that was passed in 2023. It was something that I pushed for along with the governor.
Luis, you're mute again.
Now I'm back on. Thank you. Thank you for for that. So I think we are just gonna have a couple of more 2 minutes more, 3 minutes more. So personally, I would like to thank you for taking the time to speak to the Republican National Hispanic Assembly of Florida. As you know, we have 5.5 million Hispanics, Latinos in the state of Florida. So it is crucial for us. We own businesses. We work in different kind of jobs. We support the community, and we're here, and we're here to stay. Um, I am from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico and moved to Florida to go to UCF. And many Puerto Ricans live in Florida. Around 1.5 million Puerto Ricans live in Florida, and I think it's a natural it's a natural move from Puerto Rico to Florida. We are so connected, and I know I will pass down this interview to some of our folks in the community because they have to learn what the actual candidates are proposing. They have to learn what the actual candidates wants to do. There is some people that have pretty speeches. They are great in the public speaking sector. They're just great. But politics is not only about speaking, messaging. Is about doing. It's about executing. It's about transforming people's life for the better. And I'm very pleased with all of your policies and your answers because I know that you actually have a plan for the next 4, 8 years. And I want to look forward in the next 10 years, 15 years when my son is going to school. And I want to say Florida is like that because we, the Hispanics, and we, the Latinos, and we, the Floridians, got involved into these races, the governor race, the chief financial officer race, all the races, even down to the school board races. We have to get involved. If you're listening to me, if you're not registered, please go and register. Um, Obviously, register as a Republican so you can vote in the primaries. You have a great candidate here. We're going to have more people coming to speak to our group. More of the candidates, not only for governor, but we're also going to have state representative, state senators. We also are inviting local officials, county level mayors. So stay tuned for more programming that the RNHA will provide. And please register to vote. It's very important. Get engaged. I know some of you do not want to be active in politics, but at least vote. You can vote by mail. You can vote many different ways. So get involved. Vote is very important from the school board level all the way up to the governor race. Speaker Renner, if you can please give us your final 2 minutes, 2, 3 minutes. You can do it in Spanish if you like. Why our folks, our viewers should vote for Paul Renner?
Bueno, en una palabra, liderazgo. And so you can go on to voterenner.com if you'd like to support our campaign and volunteer, voterenner.com. But the real word is leadership. And so if you compare the candidates in terms of what have they done, have they had a lifetime of leadership under pressure as I've had? 20 years in the military and 2 wars, Desert Storm in Afghanistan, 20 years apart, leading throughout that process as a prosecutor, having the experience of prosecuting violent habitual offenders and having a victim count on me to put that bad guy away so that he'll never create another victim, is leadership under pressure, positions of trust. Secondly, someone who's actually shown up during their time in office and delivered major reforms. No one has a record or the receipts that we have during my time leading the legislature Third would be vision. We have a plan. Many of the candidates, really none of the candidates have a plan. We have written plans. If you go onto voterenner.com, you can read them online, and they're there for people to look at. And so we have a plan for the future. I'm someone who has proven that I can get those things done. And at the end of the day, people don't want to go backwards after Governor DeSantis. And just like the fight over Amendment 3 and 4, I showed up, I fought, we won along with the governor. The other candidates, maybe they send in a X tweet or something like that. That's not leadership. That doesn't get it done. You've got to show up to the fight, and I'll always show up to the fight to keep the free state of Florida free, protect it, and expand what we love about Florida.
Can I
Thank
add
you. Thank you
something?
so much.
Hello, can I add something, Louis? I thought it was going to be
Sure,
another
sure.
person.
Yes, of course. Yes, we have
Okay.
1 minute more. 2 minutes, actually.
Okay.
Please.
This is Maria Machine, and I sat on your affordability roundtable, but I've also known you. And out of all the 3 major candidates that I monitor, and I've spoken to all 3, to be honest, you're the only one that's making an effort to reach the Hispanic community. And every
That's true.
time, and I've known them, and every time I've introduced them to a Hispanic business owner, you go into Spanish, which your Spanish is better than mine. So we also have to take an accountability, not that they tell us they love us, because we are the majority of the minorities in the state of Florida. So he technically is the only one that's been reaching out to the Hispanic community, not saying that he loves us, but he actually does because his wife is Colombian anyway. But he is really the only out of all the 3 that I've actually spoken and asked questions and all that has made a concerted effort to reach the Hispanics. So that's it.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Maria. And I joked, I was on a Spanish radio show, and in Spanish, she was saying, I think it was like 1 in 4 of Floridians are Hispanic. I said, well, I said, in my household, 3 out of 4 of my family are Hispanic. So we have a good ratio. We're the majority. They're the majority of the majority. I'm the minority in the minority in my household. But I speak a little Spanish, as you know.
No, you speak a really good Spanish. As I told you, you speak Spanish better than I do. And I really appreciate it because I grew up in South Florida. I always talk about Hialeah. And it's gotten that we are the majority, but at times we're an afterthought. So I really, really, I've also told you in your face, I appreciate what you do, especially for the Hispanics, because we are business owners, we're
Absolutely.
taxpayers and all that. So
Really
that's it.
tops when it comes to small business, I think. I mean, very, very high percentage of business formation. And with my tax policies and my tax and regulatory policies, that's going to continue and even grow.
All right. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Maria.
Thank
It's
you so
great
much.
to hear you. It was good to see you last week.
All right. I'll be seeing you soon anyway. But
You got it.
thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And with this, we conclude this amazing interview slash forum slash open questions. Thank you, Speaker Renner, and I wish you the best. And you can if you want to spread a message, you can use the platform of the RNHA, send us a video. You can reach out to me. I think your team has my contact information. I think Sarah and others in your team have my contact information, and also to the chairwoman Barbara, who cannot be here with us because she's actually speaking in Jacksonville, Florida. So
Good.
she is giving a speech there in Jacksonville, and our platforms are open to all the Republicans that are running. If you want to take advantage of this, contact us and we will accommodate you. And like Maria said, we thank you because you reach out sincerely and we really appreciate that.
Well, God bless everyone on the call. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.